All right, everyone, welcome to this month's Q&A. And as always, I say it every month, great questions. Keep them coming in. It's a sign to me that you guys are learning and taking your businesses to that next level. And so hopefully those of you who didn't even ask questions are learning from the questions of everyone else. So let's get to it. First question comes to us from Kerry. What if you have to relocate your business overseas, out of state, and you've already got weddings booked for next season? Do you just refund their deposits and give them time to find another photographer? So, Kerry, there's a couple of ways to answer this. First, are you moving? Because I didn't know about that. But anyway, there's a couple of ways to go about this. First would be to give them as much notice as possible, letting them know you're moving out of the country, you're relocating your business, offer them a full refund. But if you do that, you're really kind of leaving them high and dry, my opinion. What I would do is offer them 4 alternatives or multiple alternatives to for their wedding, comparable styles, comparable price points, and make a personal introduction. Because if you just go, hey, I'm moving, good luck, love you guys, you kind of really do leave them holding the bag, and nobody wants to run their business that way. So do your best to help them find a connection if you're going to do that. And just offer them the option. Some of them may say, no, thank you very much, and go. Now, me personally, I would honor that wedding. I take personal pride, even if I lost money on all those weddings, I would absolutely want to honor just my name, my brand, and a commitment I made to that client. So I know it's a catch-22. None of us ever want to lose money. But in the event things like that happen, which things do happen in life, I would want to stand true to my brand. And because you never know. You may come back. You never want to ruin your reputation. And the word gets out like, hey, she had my wedding booked and then just flaked out, disappeared last minute. So find that balance in between. And if you break even on the wedding, so be it. If you lose a couple $100 because you got to buy plane tickets back and forth, so be it. You're the one moving, not them. So keep that in mind. Next question comes from us from Adrian. How do we go about finding where our ideal clients are hanging out? How do we get in front of them? How do we attract them to our businesses, especially when our spending budget might not be as high as theirs just yet? So this is a great question. Addie, I wrote an article this month in the magazine called Finding Your Client and Connecting with Your Client. So read that article. It touches base on a lot of this stuff. But here's the key. Where are they hanging out? Who is your bride? The first key is just defining who your bride is, because until you can define who your bride or client is, for that matter, until you can define them, it's impossible to know where to look, right? You just hope to be walking through in a dark room and just you're reaching around looking for a light switch. That's never going to work. So you need to be a little bit more targeted, i.e., it's on the left wall. Oh, okay, so now I'm going to go over there and I'm going to be a little bit closer to it, right? And it is an applicable analogy, because you've got to know what you're looking for and where the best place to go is. So who is your client? Okay, it's 20-something years old. Addie, you do fashion photography. So it's that art director, that fashion director. Is there a certain niche or company or genre, if you will, that you want to go after, right? Is it clothing? So now you start narrowing down that focus you're looking for. That's how you start figuring this stuff out. If we're talking wedding clients, read that article. It makes a lot more sense on how to connect with them. But for me, I always start trying to get into the mind of that 20-something, right? Because that really is my potential client when we're talking about wedding photography. If it's senior photography, now I'm trying to get in the mind of that 16 or 17-year-old, which is right up my alley because I act like a 15-year-old most of the time anyway. But you've got to start reading what they read, watching what they watch, maybe going to conferences. If you're a commercial photographer, where are these people going? What's inspiring them? Where are the art directors going? These are the kind of things I would want to see, and then that helps me get closer to understanding the trends that are going on in any specific industry. Next question comes to us from Spencer. How do you and Taylor use your second shooter post-ceremony? Thinking specifically about the creative time, is the second shooter also shooting for different perspective, or do you have them act as more of an assistant? Yes, to all of those things. My second shooter, Alyssa, works very, very hard to be my second shooter. It's not easy, because once we get into creatives, that to me is the witching hour. That's where I'm making my money. My clients are not putting on their wall these big portraits of family pictures at the altar. They're not putting on the picture of the bride getting into her dress. Yeah, they want these pictures in their album to remember the day and document the day, but those pictures that go up on the wall 30 by 40 or larger, even 20 by 30 or larger, those are coming from the creative session. That's where I've got to be laser focused and shoot to sell. You've heard me talk about this before. That's where you're shooting to sell. So my second shooter has to be ready to capture those candidates. So if I have my wide lens on, 1635, they've got their 7200, they're standing very close to me. They're not off taking shots that look like right? They were taken by a second shooter. You know what I'm talking about, right? There are those second shooter shots where they're over here, right? It's like that camera right now. What are you going to do with this? Are you going to put this on your wall? It looks ridiculous just listening to me talk, right? Why do our second shooters do that? Because we are, as primaries, are not training them correctly. I don't want that shot. If I see Alyssa off in the distance taking shots like that, I'm going to be on her, man, so hard because I can't sell that. So my second shooter has to be in a spot that makes sense. Now, that's part one. Part two of what they need to be doing is if I call for a flash, hey, I'm going to take an off-camera flash shot, her camera goes down. She now starts prepping the flash, the battery pack, and getting ready for that. She's also, while she's second shooting, looking for the bride's hair, the bride's veil, the bride's dress. This is what I need my second shooter to do. So the short answer here, hopefully all you guys are picking up on what I'm talking about here, is your second shooter can't just be somebody you grabbed off the street with a camera. Your second shooter, you've got to invest in. You've got to make sure they understand what they need to produce on the day. I see it all the time, all across the country. I see photographers going, hey, Susie, what are you doing this weekend? I need a second shooter. And that person's a primary photographer. Well, they're not going to be a good second shooter for you if they're a primary photographer. You know who's a horrible second shooter? Me. I suck. I am just not good at being a second shooter because my brain is always in primary shooter mode. So Taylor, my wife, does not like working with me, and I don't blame her because I want to hijack the day. Instead, I've got to have somebody with me who understands what their role is, what I need from them, and how they're going to complement my work when it comes to the wedding album and the final images of the day. So I apologize for that long-winded answer, but it's very, very important that everybody understands this. You, as the primary, own directing and instructing your second shooter on what you're looking for. So choose wisely. Next question comes to us from Jeff. We're considering opening up a sub-studio, a sub-brand, if you will. Our primary brand has a good name and a good clientele, averaging about $5K per wedding. We would like to start an associate brand, right? So for their associate shooters, not the primaries. However, we're not sure how to flip those clients that inquire with our primary brand if they can't afford us. How do we do this? How do we get them into that secondary brand? This is a great business model, Jeff. It works. It can work. You just have to make sure that you don't tarnish the main brand. So first and foremost, do not name that sub-brand, okay? Like, so for example, Salvatore Cincotta Photography would be the main brand. You're always working with either me or Taylor. But let's say now I want to start farming out my second shooters on their own weddings. I would never sub them under Salvatore Cincotta Photography. Create that secondary brand called Studio C or whatever your name is. The reason you're going to do that is because if something goes wrong on the sub-brand, you don't want it to come back and tarnish the main brand. So the way I would advertise it is Salvatore Cincotta Photography, Studio C, 2 great options, 1 great price, something to that effect, right? So price is starting, 2 great options, price is starting at $19.99, $9.99. And now that phone's gonna ring. Now the key is, how are you differentiating the brands? If you're only differentiating the brands between, I'm the primary shooter, nobody cares. So you've got to figure out how you're going to differentiate those brands. For us, the way we differentiated the brands was album, quality, experience. So from an album quality perspective, right, I was not offering our high-end signature level albums. We were only offering more of a press printed book in the sub-brand, right? So the album was the biggest pull-through. Time was another pull-through item we were using, right? So you weren't getting 10 hours or all-day coverage in that sub-brand. And then, of course, the experience of the shooters. That was the other thing. You want to work with the main photographer, it's more money. If not, it's less money, but you're still getting 1 great experience across the brand. So try it out. Just be careful as you grow your business. Next question comes to us from Gary. How do you handle engagement and bridal sessions for out-of-area brides? Gary, these are my absolute favorite because it gets me out of St. Louis, man. No matter what city you're in, you're probably tired of being there. It's the same brick wall, it's the same skyline, it's the same landmarks, and blah, blah, blah. I just get bored of it. I want to go someplace and do something else. So when I get a bride who's willing to do her bridal session someplace else in some other city, I jump at the opportunity to be able to do this. I don't charge extra for it because if they're willing to go to another city, they are willing to spend more money. That's the part you have to understand. If they're willing to go to Chicago, I'm based in St. Louis. If they're willing to go up to Chicago, that means they're taking time off of work, they're renting a car, or they're in a hotel room, and on and on and on. Well, if they're going to do that, they're willing to spend money on their pictures. So I'm willing to go do that and do it free of charge. It's a lot of fun, and it's a great way to expand your portfolio. Next question comes to us from Rodrigo. How do you find bridal shows in your area? We only have 2 shows, and we don't have any luck. Rodrigo, Google. You've got to Google it. Bridal shows, St. Louis. That's the way you've got to do it. And if not enough come back, expand your radius. Bridal Shows, Chesterfield. Bridal Shows, Florida. Bridal Shows, Miami. Wherever you're looking to expand, look for bridal shows, expand your search in that area. Now, just because there's a bridal show doesn't mean you want to be part of it. So for example, while I'm in the St. Louis area, I rarely do shows on the Illinois side of the river because most of those shows are garbage. That's just reality. They charge $200 for a booth. Sounds exciting, right? $200, I get a booth. But the quality and caliber of bride that ends up there is just not my bride. And so this takes time. So for any of you out there considering bridal shows, don't look at the price and make your decision on that, right? It takes time. I've been doing bridal shows for 8 years. The bridal show I did 8 years ago is not the same bridal show I'm going to do today. And the bridal show that I do today, I couldn't afford 8 years ago. So you've got to work yourself through that progression as your business grows. Next question comes to us from Cam. How many photographs from a wedding should be given to clients? Trying to find that balance between giving them enough to give them their value, but not too many to overwhelm them. I love overwhelming people, by the way, Cam, because the more pictures you show them, the better chances you have of adding more pages to their album. But here's what we do. The typical client will see 800 completely edited images. Skin softened, special edits, right? Hodgepodge of just images, black and white, but they're all edited in one form or fashion. Then they get an additional 700 that if you're using Lightroom, for example, the 800 images are 5-starred, the 700 images are 3-starred. These are those images that they're okay, but they're not your best shots. They're not bad, no blinks, no people chewing food or underexposures or test shots, things like that. There's those shots where you're like, I saw you over in that corner taking a picture of my grandmother, but I don't see it here. Yeah, I don't want to go digging for that. It's in your 3-star images. And now if that client wants that image edited, we'll absolutely edit. So my final deliverable to a client is typically around 1,500 images, but I shoot 4,000 to 5,000 images from a given day, right? So, that 30% mark is usually a good mark to target depending on how many you shoot. So for every 1,000 images you shoot, try and give them about 300 images. I think it's a good balance. Some of you are probably twitching right now, be like, what, how many? Hey, in the days of film, you were like crazy if you were giving your client like 400 proofs. So trust me, I've changed over the years and you will too. Find that balance in what works for you. Next question comes to us from Shan. Do you have any experience with Billboard ads? What's your take on their ROI? Where would you put it? How large? Brand awareness or call to action as well? So Shan, if you're going to do a billboard, which by the way, I think is a brilliant idea, just keep in mind, it has got to be brand awareness. There's no other reason to do it. Call to action is really tough. It's not time sensitive. People driving in their car, it's not going to be like, oh, whoa, what, 800, it's impossible, right? I mean, they're driving. So it's not as easy to do a call to action campaign on that. It's usually brand awareness. Now, I don't know what city you're in, what town you're in, how much they are, but if you're going to do it, understand it really is about brand awareness. You need to come up with a catchy, nickname or URL, right? So I would never, if I were running a billboard ad, make the ad salsincata.com. Visit salsincata.com for more info. It won't work because they'll never remember it. My name's too complicated. They're not going to write it down. So you got to come up with something a little more catchy, right? So it might be like, getshots.com, which is not going to be available. But you see what I'm saying? Come up with a catchy URL that you can buy, and then they can remember that, and that'll drive them to your main site. So that would be the best way to do it. And then maybe you could have win a free engagement session. Visit getengaged.com for more information. That's something they can actually remember. So I hope that makes sense. Final question comes to us from Kerry. What do you do if someone just contacts you for an engagement session? I tend to get a lot of out-of-town people coming to visit whose wedding is in another state. One, can you convert those people to be your wedding client? And two, how do you treat them? Meaning, 99% of them want their digital files, and doing an in-person sale is not going to happen. So Kerry, great question. Here's what you're going to have to do. You've got a couple of choices here, and I would say experiment. There's not going to be a silver bullet for you, but you do have to experiment to figure out what the right answer is. First, I would try doing an online sales session using Skype. Maybe that's going to work, maybe that's not, especially if they're looking for just the digital images. In your particular case, if they're looking for just the digital images, sell them to them. But make sure you're selling them at a price point that absolutely makes sense. What I would not be doing is selling them that for the $99 engagement session fee. That's where you're going to find that challenge, right? Or $299. It doesn't matter what the number is. because more than likely your competitors are probably doing something in the neighborhood of $299 and you get a CD of all the images. Well, how do you compete with that? The only way you're going to compete with that is offering a superior product or service that they want, and that you're going to have to find a way to communicate that over email or on your website. How do you communicate that? It's not going to be, hey, we're $9.99 and get a CD of images, because now they're going to look at it and go, well, there's another photographer there that's $99 and I get all my images. So you have to have a way of showing what you're giving them. Maybe it's 3 packages. Package 1 is session only. Package 2 is session and some prints. Package 3 is session, prints, digital files. That could work. So give that a whirl. Again, everybody, thank you for tuning in this month. I hope keep your Q&A coming in, and I hope you're learning and growing and enjoy this month's issue. Lots of stuff going on here at Behind the Shutter. Enjoy.